Okay, next device access method which we discuss is through the Telnet session. Telnet, it is one of the remote device access method. You have to have active networking service and one active interface that is configured in the device, and you have to make sure the reachability from the end user device. So it is one of the remote access method. Telnet communication normally in clear text file format, which means user authentication, password, commands are sent over the network in plain text file format. That's what it will be considered as insecure method, right? Mainly when anyone doing Telnet session from internet to organization firewall, it will be considered as more vulnerable because of clear text format, right? So still inside the organization with certain condition you can use Telnet session, but Cisco recommendation always use the SSH connection. Okay, here I have come up with an active lab session for the Telnet configuration purpose. We will check the connectivity between end device and router R1 over here, right? So in order to check the connectivity between these two devices, I will get into the Windows 7 PC. First of all, I will make sure what's my IP address, ipconfig. Once I type ipconfig command, I can get my IP address, that is 192.168.10.6. that is from network A, right? So this is the PC currently I am using, right? Okay, so from this PC I will ping to router R1 192.168.10.1 IP address, or you can use the 10.111/30 IP address. So what I will do, I will just go to Windows 7 PC, ping 192.168.10.1. I will be able to get the reply. And similarly, if I try to ping, if I ping 10.111, right, here also I will be able to get the reply. Because of what? Both of the interfaces are up and running, right? Now if I try to do the Telnet session from Windows 7 PC to router R1, what will be the message? Let's see. Okay, what it is saying, connecting to 10.1.1 couldn't open connection to the host on port number 23. Connection failed. What does it mean? From router R1, the port number 23 is closed, which means Telnet is not configured in this router R1. That's what this Windows 7 end device cannot do the Telnet session. Okay, in order to configure the Telnet in router R1, I will get into the line VTY sublevel configuration mode. So in global configuration mode, just provide the command line VTY. By default, in one Cisco device you can allow up to 16 connection, but here for the lab purpose I am just using up to 5 connections. 0 to 4 I will use. Enter. Then here I will allow the connection remotely to the Cisco device. So I will just provide the command called login. So once I type login, enter. Okay, once you type login, it will allow the user to use the Telnet session, but at the same time what it will say, login is disabled until you set the password. So for the line VTY, which means for the Telnet, you need to assign password also, right? So I will just assign a password Cisco. Once you enter, then login will be enabled, right? So again, you no need to type, automatically the login will be enabled because you provide the password now, right? Next command, transport input, then put the question mark. Here you can verify all the protocol which can be allowed in the line VTY port, right? So you can allow Telnet, or if you would like, you can allow the SSH, and you can allow Telnet and SSH both together, right? So here I will allow only Telnet. So once I put Telnet, it will specify the Telnet as an incoming protocol. All other remaining protocol will be denied here, right? Only Telnet will be allowed as an incoming protocol. This time I will try to do the Telnet session from Windows 7 PC. Telnet 10.1.1.1, right? This is the IP address of router R1. Okay, gig 0/1 interface, right? So once you type this command and if you enter, it will prompt for the password. What password you need to give? The password which we assign for the Telnet is Cisco. Once we provide Cisco password, it will allow you to get into the user exec mode. But from user exec mode, if you try to go to the privilege exec mode, you have to put the command called enable. Once you type enable, it will not allow you to get into the privilege exit mode. Instead, what it will say, you have to set the password in order to get to the privilege exit mode. So as an additional layer of security, the Telnet always will ask enable password. So if enable password is not there, then you cannot get into the privilege exit mode. Instead, you have to go to the device and you need to configure the enable password as well. So in order to configure the enable password, again from the global configuration mode, I will type enable password, then I will provide the password Cisco, right? Okay, now if I try to get into the privilege exit mode with the Cisco password, definitely I will be able to get into the privilege exit mode, right? Enable password will be applied globally for entire router. That's what when you exit and when you get into the privilege exit mode, it will ask the password even for the line console. Okay, so if I exit and I will enter again, then you have to type the password in order to get into the privilege exit mode, right? Normally Telnet communication in clear text file format, it is one of the biggest weak point of Telnet, right? To identify this weak point, we can use an application called Wireshark. Wireshark is a network protocol analyzer and troubleshooting tool. It grabs information in every layer of OSI model. I will capture this router R1 gig0/0 interface in order to read the information transfer from Windows 7 PC. Right click on the router R1, click capture. I will capture the gig0/0 interface. Once it is open, directly it will start to capture the packet coming on that particular interface, right? So first of all, I will do the Telnet session from my Windows 7 PC 192.168.10.1. Then once I get into the it will prompt for the password. I will give the password, enable, again password. Now let's stop the capturing. So once I stop the capturing, it will show everything here, right? So we can see everything from this particular information, right? So Wireshark, normally it will grab the data in each and every OSI layer. For example, if I expand the Telnet over here, just click the data, it's C, and the next packet, next stream of packet you can see here, that is IS, something called IS. And similarly, if I come to again next stream, and again CO is there, right? It's normally reassembling the data when we send over the network, right? So if I follow up the TCP stream, simply you can grab the data, the total data you can grab. How are you going to get it? Go to analyzer, click follow TCP stream. Here you can get the password information. Similarly, all the data transmission can happen with clear text file format. Still you can use inside the organization with certain condition. Okay, next Cisco device access method is SSH. Before we get to SSH, let's see the difference between login and login local. In certain scenario, you will see login local instead of login. As we configured earlier for the line VTY as well as for the line console, we used only login option. Instead of this login option, sometime in some scenario in organization you might be able to see login local. The difference between these two, for the login you require only one piece of information, that is your password. But for the login local you have to type two pieces of information, that is a username and password, right? So in this case, if I configure Telnet configuration with login local option, for example, I will just get into the line VTY 04. Instead of login, I will change this one as login local, right? So this time when I do the Telnet session from Windows 7 PC, let's see what it will ask. So I will do the Telnet session Telnet 192.168.10.1. This time it will prompt for username and password, but we didn't configure the username. So in order to configure the username, you have to configure the local user database. Even if you don't configure the username along with password, still it will prompt for the username. This is the place you did the mistake. So in this case, still I can configure the local database while I am on my console. So this is my console, I am on my console, still I can configure the local user database in order to do the telnet session over the network, right? Username John, password I will provide Cisco. Now my local user database is there. Through this username and password, I will be able to get into the telnet session from Windows 7 PC, right? John, password is Cisco. Now you able to get the telnet session because your local user database is there. But this kind of errors you should not do for your console line, right? So if you do something like this, for example, line console 0, and I am providing the password Cisco and login local option I am giving, right? In this scenario, let's assume you didn't configure this username and password and you exit out of the console. Again, when you get back to the console, it will prompt for username and password. So this is where you will get yourselves locked out, right? So you have to be very careful while you are in the console. If something happened with the line VTY, it doesn't matter, you can make it accurate. For the line console option, do not configure login local option without local user database. So the best practice, initially you configure the local user database, then you can configure login local option in any one of the line, even it can be line VTY, line console. Okay, next SSH. This is next Cisco device access method. It will use SSL certificate in order to access the devices over the network. For this one also you require active network connectivity. Alright, you have to have proper network connectivity, then only you can do the SSH connection over the network. And this is one of the remote login method similar to Telnet, but more secure method when you compare with Telnet access, right? Stronger password authentication. It is not in clear text file format. It will use encryption when transporting data. Here you must use login local option. You cannot use login only option. Instead you need to use both the username and password. So let's see how you're going to configure the SSH configuration in your Cisco device. Here again I will use the router R1 for SSH configuration. Then we will access the router R1 device using Windows 7 PC, as well as we will try to access the router R1 via SSH session from the Linux PC as well. Okay, first command, we need to assign a name for the router. So already router name is configured. In case if the router name is different, you can configure whatever the name you want. For configuring host name, normally you will use the hostname command, right? Then second command, you need to configure the domain for your device, right? IP domain name, for example xyz.com. Third command, you need to generate encryption key. In order to generate encryption key, you will use the command called crypto key generate RST. Enter. Then it will ask how many bits in the modulus, which means what is the size of the key that you want to use. So I will use 1024 in order to make it more secure, right? Then it will generate the keys. Okay, next command, you will use the Neva SSH version. In order to use Neva SSH version, you need to use the command called IP SSH version 2. So this is the command you need to use. Next command, you need to configure the local user database. Already I have an account, as well as if I would like to create one more account, no problem, you can create it. So I will just create username. I will use username Alan, password anything, Cisco at 123. I will just put Cisco as a password. Then I will get into the line VTY line VTY 0 to 4. Then I will allow the SSH protocol as well. Earlier our command was transport input telnet. Here I will use telnet as well as SSH. Leave the space and you type SSH, then both of the protocol will be allowed in this particular line. right. Next command, you need to use the option called login local. Already our option was login local, so you have to use it. So once you type login local, even for the telnet also you need to use the local user database. Okay, now we will test it from Windows 7 PC. In Windows 7 PC you cannot use the command prompt. By default in Windows they didn't allow the SSH session using command prompt. Instead you can use the party terminal or CQCRT. So I will use the party terminal in order to access the Cisco device using SSH session. SSH, then you will type the IP address of your device. What is the IP address? IP address is 192.168.10.1. either you can use 10.1.1.1, right? So I will use 192.168.10.1 and SSH. Instead of telnet I will use SSH and click open. It will ask for the username. I will just provide the username as LN. Password is Cisco. Now this is what the SSH method, right? In order to access your router, here you can use SSH using party terminal session. Okay, in order to access the router R1 device using SSH session, already we used the Windows 7 PC. Now let's use the Linux machine as well, right? So if I want to test the IP address, if I want to check the IP address ifconfig, here it will show IP address 192.168.20.6, right? So if I want to test the connectivity first, ping at 10.1.1.1, right? Still you can ping to the router R1 interface. Okay, so from here if I want to do the telnet session, simply you can use telnet 1.1.1. It will access the device using telnet session. Same window, if you would like to use the SSH, you can type the command called SSH -L, L for local username they are asking. I will just provide the username LN, then IP address of your device. Here I will use the IP address 10.1.1.1, right? So once I type this IP address, now I am able to do the SSH session from Linux machine as well, right? Now what they are asking, are you sure you want to continue the connecting? Yes. Once you enter, then it will ask the password. I will just provide Cisco. Now I can get into the router R1 device as well using SSH session from Linux machine. Okay, now you have some understanding about how you will access Cisco devices using various methods, and also you have got some knowledge about Cisco IOS command mode. That's all for this video. In next video tutorial you will study about Cisco router booting process. Also you will study certain basic command that you can use in Cisco devices.